Welcome back. I want you to think for a second about the device you're listening to this on.
A phone, a laptop, maybe in your car.
Exactly. And we are, I think it's fair to say, obsessed with computing power. We see everything in our lives as a machine.
Input, processing, output. It's the dominant metaphor.
For the last, 50 years or so, we've applied that same metaphor to our own brains. We talk about, processing speed and bandwidth and reprogramming ourselves.
It's a very neat metaphor. It's tidy.
Yeah.
And it implies that if we just find the right bit of code, we can fix any glitch almost instantly.
Right. But today we're looking at a body of work that suggests that metaphor is not only wrong, but it's actually damaging us.
Oh, yeah.
We're sort of standing at the gate of a much older and I'd say a much more terrifying metaphor.
Terrifying is a good word for it.
We're looking at the human mind not as a machine you can program, but as a garden that you have to cultivate.
It's a fundamental shift from mechanics to biology. And we're anchoring this whole discussion in James Allen's classic from, 1903, As a Man Thinketh.
And before you roll your eyes at a book that's over a century old.
Which is a fair reaction.
It is. But we've overlaid Allen's ideas with modern behavioral science, some pretty heavy Stoic philosophy, and even some neurobiology on how neural pathways actually grow.
And what's so powerful about this garden idea is how binary it is.
What do you mean by binary?
Well, with a computer, you can just turn it off.
Yeah.
Right? It just sits there. It's inert. It does nothing until you give it a command.
But Allen's whole point, and this is where the biology comes in, is that the garden of the mind, it has no off switch.
That is the critical distinction. A machine can be idle. A garden cannot. Allen argues that your mind is either being intelligently cultivated or it's being allowed to just run wild.
And here's the kicker. This is the part that I think makes people really uncomfortable.
It's the inevitability of it.
Yes. Whether you cultivate it or you neglect it, it must and it will bring forth growth.
The soil just doesn't care what you plant. It will grow whatever falls into it. So if you don't deliberately plant useful seeds, corn, flowers, whatever, then useless weed seeds will fall in.
They're just in the air. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. And the soil will produce those weeds with the exact same energy and abundance it would have used for the good stuff.
So this is about moving from a passive state of, I hope things work out, to becoming the master gardener of your own soul. It's realizing we don't attract what we want.
Because we all want to be happy and successful.
Right. We attract what we are. This is our 9th session, Harvesting the Garden.
And just a quick tone check here, because I know a phrase like master gardener of the soul can sound a little
woo-woo.
A little woo-woo, yeah. We're not talking about magic. We aren't talking about manifesting a lo shui card just by, wishing for it really hard.
Thank you. I was about to ask if we needed to light some incense to get through this.
No incense required. This is about strict cause and effect, input and output. This is all about the mechanics of psychology, not magic.
If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
Mind is a garden.
Okay, so let's get into this core philosophy. Allen's main point is that you harvest exactly what you cultivate in your thoughts and habits. He calls it the law of the harvest.
Right. And on the surface, that sounds really simple, like something you'd hear in a Sunday school class. You reap what you sow.
It does sound almost deceptively simple.
It is. He says you cannot sow nettles and reap corn. Now, in farming, nobody would ever argue with this. If a farmer planted a field of poison ivy and then got furious that he didn't get a crop of strawberries.
We'd say he's completely detached from reality.
Exactly. We'd call him insane. But in our own mental lives, we do this every single day.
How so? Give me an example of how we do that psychologically.
Well, just think about it. We think we can sow seeds of resentment. Stewing over something a coworker said 3 days ago. Or seeds of distraction, like scrolling on our phones for 2 hours every night.
Right.
And we somehow believe we can sow all those seeds and then miraculously reap a harvest of peace and focus and success. Allen is just saying the law is undeviating. It doesn't make an exception for you because you had a bad day.
He has a really clear chain of events in the text. He says our thoughts are the seeds.
Then our actions are the blossoms.
And our circumstances, our actual tangible life, are the fruits.
And those fruits can be bitter or sweet, which brings us to a really, really critical reframing of how we look at our lives. We have to define harvest in plain English.
Because it's not always a bounty.
No. Sometimes the harvest is just a pile of weeds. Here, harvest simply means result.
I really liked how you put this in our notes, though I admit I struggled with it at first. You said results are feedback.
Results are feedback.
When I first read that, I kind of pushed back.
Yeah.
Because if I'm struggling financially or, my health is failing, that doesn't feel like feedback.
It feels like a disaster.
It feels like a disaster. It feels like a judgment on me as a person.
And that's the trap. That's the default setting for the human mind. We look at a bad outcome and we immediately internalize it as part of our identity. We say, I am a failure, or I am unlovable, or I am just unlucky.
We tell ourselves a story that the world is out to get us.
But the gardener mindset completely flips that. Think about it. If a master gardener sees that his tomatoes are withering on the vine,
Okay.
or that weeds have totally taken over the cucumber patch, he doesn't fall to his knees and scream, I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
Or, why does the sun hate me?
He just thinks he's a bad gardener, maybe.
Not even that. A real expert looks at it as data, pure information. He says, oh, look at that. The soil must be too dry. Or, I've planted these in the shade when they needed full sun. The results are just neutral feedback on his past strategy.
So a withering tomato isn't a moral judgment.
It's just a biological consequence.
That's actually incredibly liberating. It depersonalizes the whole mess. It takes all the shame out of it.
It removes the morality from the result.
Right.
The weeds, those negative outcomes we all experience, they aren't punishments from the universe.
They're just revealing patterns.
Exactly. Consequences just reveal what you have been doing, or maybe more importantly, what you've been neglecting to do. If you have weeds, it just means there's been a lack of attention. It doesn't mean you have bad luck.
And this ties into that idea of husbandry, right? Which is an old word, but it just means management.
Right. It connects that management to agency, to control.
Ownership creates options.
Yes. If you could admit, I planted this, even if you did it unconsciously, just by letting weeds grow, then you have the power to uproot it.
But if you believe it's just bad luck.
You're helpless. You're a victim waiting for the world to change.
Yeah.
But the moment you say, I grew this, you become the architect.
Yeah.
You realize if you planted it, you can pull it out.
There is a razor's edge here, though, isn't there? We need to be careful because telling someone you caused your own suffering can sound a lot like victim blaming. It can send people into a shame spiral.
You are 100% right. And if we don't make this next distinction very clearly, this whole philosophy can become toxic. We have to separate responsibility from shame.
They look similar on the surface.
They look very similar, but they have opposite energy. They lead to completely different actions.
Let's break that down because I think a lot of people mix them up.
Responsibility is power. Shame is paralysis.
Responsibility is power.
Okay, explain that. Shame is paralysis.
Shame is an attack on the self. Shame says, there are weeds in my garden, therefore I am a bad gardener, therefore I am a bad person. Shame makes you want to hide the garden.
You don't want anyone to see the mess.
Exactly. It makes you want to close the gate, and crucially, it stops you from going out there to do the work. You can't weed the garden if you're hiding under your bed, terrified to even look at it.
So what does responsibility look like instead? How is it different?
Responsibility is, it's more clinical. It focuses on the mechanics, the link between the seed and the fruit. It says, okay, there are weeds here. I don't like it, but how did they get here? Oh, I see. I neglected this relationship for 3 years. That was a choice. I can make a different choice starting today.
It feels cleaner. It's less emotional.
It is. It's what psychologists call having an internal locus of control. It's the belief that you possess the creative power, that's Alan's phrase, to command the soil and the seeds.
So responsibility gets you working, while shame keeps you stuck.
Perfectly put. Responsibility initiates the work, shame prevents it.
So if we're going to be these master gardeners, we almost need a diagnostic approach. We have to put on a kind of mental lab coat.
I love that. Yes. Alan calls your environment a looking glass. Your life is a mirror. But you have to be willing to look at it without flinching.
So how do we read the harvest? If my life is a looking glass, what am I looking for?
You're looking for 3 specific things. And first, you look for what's working.
That's the easy part. The fun part. Where are the flowers and fruits? Where is there actual joy or peace or success in your life?
But don't just celebrate it. You have to trace it back. This is the key. Most people enjoy success, but they never analyze it. Trace it back to the useful seeds of thought that created it.
So if you get a promotion at work, why?
Probably because of a seed of diligence or focus you planted months ago. You have to know what you did right so you can do it again on purpose.
Then the hard part. You have to look at what's repeating.
Patterns repeat until changed.
This is where you have to be honest. Look for those recurring negative patterns, the weeds that just keep coming back.
Maybe it's the same fight with your partner, or the same financial stress at the end of every month, the same burnout every single quarter.
And the book reminds us that weeds grow by neglect. You don't have to actively plant weeds, you just have to do nothing.
If a pattern keeps repeating, it means the root is still in the ground.
Yeah. Haven't dug it up yet. And then finally, you have to ask what needs replanting. Identify those areas of, decay or stagnation that just need a whole new crop, which means a new pattern of thought.
Okay, so we've surveyed the land, we see the weeds, we see the fruit, we've accepted that we're the gardener. Now what? We need a method. How do we actually cultivate the mind?
We've distilled it down into 5 steps, combining Allen's philosophy with some really practical modern techniques.
And step 1 is going to sound really counterintuitive to a lot of people.
It is. Step 1 is accept the current harvest.
This sounds a lot like that Stoic idea of amor fati, loving your fate, or even the Zen concept of accepting the muddy water.
That's exactly what it is. You have to accept where you are right now without judgment before you can possibly change it.
So if you're standing in a field of nettles, just screaming at the nettles doesn't help.
It doesn't make them go away.
Yep.
Denying they exist doesn't work either. You have to just look around and say, okay, this is the state of the garden. It's messy, it's overgrown, but this is the starting point.
Using neutral language.
Yes. Not, this is a catastrophe, but this is the current situation. Acceptance stops the massive energy drain that comes from fighting reality.
Once we've done that, once we've accepted it, we move to step 2.
Pull the weeds without drama.
Pull weeds without drama.
I think without drama is the most important part of that phrase.
It's everything. We're talking about cognitive reframing here.
We found some great insights on this from Ethan Kross's work on chatter. He suggests using what he calls distanced self-talk.
Yes. So when you find a weed seed, let's say it's a thought of fear or doubt or that sudden urge to procrastinate, the key is not to fight it emotionally. Don't get tangled up in it.
Which is what we usually do. We argue with ourselves. Why am I thinking this? I shouldn't be afraid. I need to be braver.
Right, and all that does is focus more attention on the fear. Cross's research suggests you should switch to the third person. Talk to yourself using your own name.
So I would actually say to myself, host is feeling anxious right now.
Exactly. Host is feeling a weed of anxiety. It sounds a little strange at first, but what it does is create psychological distance. It shifts the activity in your brain from the amygdala, the emotional center, to the prefrontal cortex, the executive center.
You just recognize the weed. Oh, that's a weed.
And then you remove it. It's almost mechanical. You aren't angry at the weed. You just recognize it doesn't belong in your garden.
This does not belong here. Pluck. Gone.
And now that the soil is clear, you move to step 3. Plant 1 new seed.
We have to be really specific here. This isn't just thinking happy thoughts. We're not talking about affirmations in front of a mirror.
No, we're looking at the science of what are called implementation intentions.
This is the if-then planning, right?
Correct. So the seed has to be a clear, specific intention or thought, like I am capable or I am calm. But to make that seed actually viable, you use a technique called mental contrasting, or WOU-OP.
Wish, outcome, obstacle, plan.
Exactly. And I found this fascinating because so much self-help advice tells you to ignore the obstacles. Just visualize your success.
Which turns out to be terrible advice.
It's awful advice. The research shows that if you only visualize success, your brain actually relaxes. It gets a little hit of dopamine and thinks you've already won. It literally lowers your blood pressure and drains your motivation to act.
So how does WOPI fix that?
You visualize the outcome you want, the sweet fruit, but then you immediately visualize the specific internal obstacle that usually stops you.
For instance, I want to be fit, but my obstacle is that I love hitting the snooze button.
Right. Hitting snooze is the weed. So you make a fit inactive. If I feel the urge to hit snooze, then I will immediately put my feet on the floor. You're planting the seed deep in reality, not in fantasy. You're preparing the seed to survive the actual environment.
I love that. Okay, so now step 4.
Yeah.
You can't just plant a seed and walk away.
No, you have to water it with action.
Action waters the seed.
This is where neuroplasticity comes in.
Attention is water.
Yeah.
Whatever you pay attention to grows in your brain. But more importantly, action is what validates the thought.
And the sources here talk about small wins and identity-based habits.
You water the new seed through small daily proofs of the new identity. If you planted the seed, I am a healthy person, you water it by choosing the stairs instead of the elevator. That one tiny action proves to your brain that the seed is real.
It nourishes the neural pathway.
It's like Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together wire together. Every time you take an action that aligns with the new seed, you are literally thickening that connection in your brain.
And if you don't act, the seed just withers.
It dries up and dies. And finally, step 5 is to remove contradictions.
James Allen talks about the double-minded man.
Right. You cannot plant corn and protect the weeds at the same time. This is about integrity. You have to align your actions with the new thought.
You can't say, I'm focusing on my career and then spend 4 hours a day scrolling social media.
That's a contradiction. It kills the seed. It's like trying to lose weight while eating a salad for lunch and then an entire cake for dinner. The contradiction just cancels out all the effort.
Let's make this really concrete. We have 3 examples of how this applies to daily life: work, relationships, and habits.
Okay.
Let's start with work. The concept here is that your output reflects your attention and your practice.
Right.
So first, what's the weed? What's the common weed in the modern workplace?
Has to be distraction. Or complaining about colleagues. That slacker mentality we see in the Proverbs source. The person who won't plow in season because it's too cold.
And the harvest from that weed?
Poor performance, stress, stagnation. You feel stuck. You feel like you're being overlooked for promotions. But the reality is you haven't planted anything useful. You've been growing busyness instead of value.
So what's the fix? What's the new seed to plant?
The fix is cultivating focused attention. Allen calls it the faultless performance of duty. You plant the seed. I bring value to my work. And then you water it by doing your tasks with absolute focus.
You turn off the notifications, you do the deep work.
That's the water.
I like that phrase, faultless performance of duty. It sounds a little old-fashioned, but it's really about excellence.
It is.
Okay, what about relationships?
The core concept here is that trust reflects your patterns of speech and action.
And the weed?
Gossip, harsh words, suspicion. Allen talks about a dyed soul, one that's colored by suspicion. If you're constantly suspicious of your partner or your friends, that's a weed you're actively cultivating.
And the harvest is obviously conflict, isolation, a lack of intimacy.
You just push people away. The fix is to consciously sow seeds of gentleness and reliability. There's that beautiful line from wisdom literature, a soft word turns away wrath.
That's a seed.
That's a seed. If you choose to plant a soft word when your impulse is to shout, you are actively cultivating peace.
That's a very hard seed to plant in the heat of an argument.
It's one of the hardest. But the fruit, a trusting, loving relationship, is worth the effort.
Okay, finally, habits.
Here the concept is simple. Your energy reflects your routines and your environment.
The weed is obvious here. Late nights, poor nutrition, just letting the garden run wild out of neglect, that whole revenge bedtime procrastination thing.
And the harvest is fatigue, brain fog, physical weakness. You wake up tired, so you make bad choices, which makes you sleep poorly again. It's a self-perpetuating cycle of weeds.
So what's the fix?
Output reflects input.
The fix is treating your body as a plastic instrument. That's Allen's term. It means the body will respond to the mind's command. You plant the seed of discipline, I honor my need for rest, and then the body eventually obeys.
Okay, we've gone through the theory. Now I want to invite you, our listener, to do something with us. We're going to do a quick harvest review reset.
This is a guided exercise. You can do this right now, just in your head while you're listening, or feel free to pause if you need a moment.
Harvest review reset.
I'll walk us through this. First, just choose one area of your life. Pick one. Work, health, or relationships. Don't try to fix everything at once.
Got one. Okay, now describe the current harvest and use neutral language. What is the actual result you're getting right now? Don't judge it, just describe it. I am frequently tired. My team seems annoyed with me. I have no savings.
Next step. Identify the seed thought. What is the recurring thought that fed this result?
And you have to be honest here. Really dig deep. Was it, I'm too tired to try? Or they don't respect me anyway? Or maybe just, I'll deal with it tomorrow. That's the seed. That's the root.
Now, identify the daily action. What did you do or what did you neglect to do that watered that thought?
Did you hit the snooze button 3 times? Did you snap at your partner the minute you walked in the door? Did you make that impulse purchase at the checkout?
Right. Time for the reset. Choose one new seed statement, a new truth you're going to plant.
And make it in the present tense. I am capable. I bring value to my work. I am calm and patient. I am disciplined.
Now, choose one small action you can take today. Just one. Something that proves this new seed is real.
It could be as small as sending one email you've been avoiding, drinking one extra glass of water, taking one conscious deep breath. It doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be true.
And finally, remove one contradiction. Identify one excuse or one distraction that you can cut out immediately.
Delete the app from your phone. Close the browser tab. Say no to that invitation that you know is just going to drain your energy. Protect the new seed.
That's the work. It's simple, but it is not easy. And there are some really common mistakes people make that we should probably warn everyone about.
Oh, absolutely. If you try this, you will almost certainly run into these traps. The first mistake is expecting the harvest immediately after planting the seed.
We live in such an instant gratification world. We post a photo and we want likes in 5 seconds.
We do, but nature does not work that way. The law of the harvest requires a season of growth. You plant the seed of fitness today, you're not going to see the harvest in the mirror tomorrow morning. You have to have patience. You have to trust the process.
Patience protects the harvest.
The next mistake is a big one. Pulling the weeds, but forgetting to plant something new.
This is the vacuum effect. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you just stop a bad habit, say you stop smoking or doom scrolling, but you don't replace it with a positive one, the weeds will just come right back. That energy has to go somewhere.
Right, you have to replace the negative with the positive.
You have to. Another one is only watering the garden when you feel inspired.
Waiting for motivation.
Yes, but the garden needs daily tending, not just occasional bursts of enthusiasm when you feel motivated. Motivation is a fair weather friend. Habit is what gets the watering done when it's raining.
Then there's the mistake of blaming the soil.
That's just blaming your circumstances for the seed you planted. I'd be happy if I lived in a different city. I'd be productive if I had a better boss. No. You choose the seed regardless of the soil quality. That's what radical responsibility is.
Some soil is rockier than others, for sure.
Of course. But things can grow almost anywhere if the gardener is skilled and dedicated enough.
And finally, the last mistake is ignoring the small weeds.
Vigilance. Those small negative thoughts, just this once, or it doesn't really matter, or I'll skip it today, they seem harmless. But they will eventually take over the whole garden if you leave them unchecked.
A small leak sinks a great ship.
And a small weed chokes a great harvest.
Let's do a quick recap of what we've covered today. This has been a pretty heavy session.
Let's do it.
First, just remember that your mind is a garden. It will produce either fruit or weeds based on your care. There's no neutral.
Next, understand that your current life circumstances are just feedback, not a final judgment. They're just data.
Also, that responsibility is your tool for liberation, while shame will only keep you stuck and paralyzed.
Furthermore, you have to learn to read your harvest, to know what to replant. Look at the fruit to understand the seed.
And in addition, use the method. Accept the current situation, pull the weeds without drama, plant one specific new seed, water it with a small action, and remove the contradictions.
Moreover, apply this framework to your work, your relationships, and your habits to see real, tangible change.
And finally, consistency in the daily work is the true secret to a bountiful harvest.
Consistency creates destiny.
We've covered a lot of ground today, but the journey isn't over. In our next discussion, we're going to tackle the biggest question of all.
That's right. Episode 10 is called The Meaning of Life. We're going to explore the ultimate purpose of this garden. Now that we know how to grow things, we need to ask, what are we trying to grow?
You will not want to miss that one.
Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.